Flight Risk is flying into theaters right now with a dangerous criminal handcuffed in the back of the plane. But do y'all need to pilot yourselves into a theater to go see it? Stick around and I will tell you my thoughts. Hello and welcome to the channel. My name is Sean and I love movies. I love all movies. I know that Oscars discourse is upon us, but that was not going to stop me from seeing what looked like one of the goofiest movies of the year. Flight Risk is about an air marshal played by Downton Abbey's Michelle Dockery, who is transporting a fugitive played by Topher Grace from remote Alaska so that he, the fugitive, can testify against a mob boss whose books he was keeping. Things go awry when the pilot on their chartered plane, played by Mark Wahlberg, turns out to be a hired gun who was sent there to kill them. I realized that last sentence was worded slightly strange. Wahlberg plays the assassin sent to kill them. He is not somehow playing the voice of the plane, though that would have been a welcome comedic treat. Um, this film is lean. It's a 90-minute action thriller that harkens back to the day of like renting a movie on Redbox with your dad. It is knowingly pretty silly and it is at its best when leaning into that silliness, but this is exactly as good or as fun as Redbox movie rented with your dad sounds to you from whatever that statement means in your personal experience. It is not an objectively good film by any means. Now, you may have noticed that I have not yet commented on the director of this film or their previous work. This is because this film is directed by Mel Gibson. Now, Mel Gibson, despite whatever objective level of talent he may have, is an awful person who I do not think has atoned enough for his transgressions and who I don't believe is actually remorseful, even. So he's a bad dude. Even with AMC A List, you may think that my support of this film, even with like an A-list slot, is somehow co-signing Gibson's beliefs or his past actions. And I understand that. And I understand that this is a dicey area and topic for sure. For example, I think that it's very possible to separate an artist from their art. I can watch an old Woody Allen movie and appreciate things about it without supporting his gross acts. I don't throw a DVD across the room the second the old Miramax logo appears ahead of a film, though, of course, I think Harvey Weinstein is an evil turd who should rot for all eternity. And, that being said, I do sort of agree that it gets into weird territory if you are actively paying for a ticket to something instead of watching an existing DVD or watching something on a streaming service to which you already have a subscription. So, hypothetically, a way to circumvent this so that you can still comment on a film, it may be to use your A-list slot on a separate movie with the same ticket price and then to sneak into Flight Risk instead. This way, you still save the money with AMC A-list. You can comment on a new movie that is controversial, and the money that you or AMC uses for that ticket goes to a different film like Hard Truths or Honora or Conclave or whatever. I don't know to what film the money would go to specifically in this hypothetical scenario because it is a hypothetical workaround that would be in violation of AMC A-List's terms of service. It is not something that I actually did in this case, not in any alternate timeline or alternate universe. I did not do this. The critical consensus on Flight Risk is pretty accurate, I would say. The overwhelming opinion seems to be negative, but I'm somebody who believes that objectively bad movies can still be entertaining. I think Michelle Dockery and Topher Grace are entertaining together in this film and provide enough charisma collectively to get you through to the end of the film relatively satiated and entertained. Weirdly enough, despite being the big face on all the posters, Mark Wahlberg is not as much in his action mode as you might expect, given the premise of the film and how heavily he is being used in the marketing. I know that he himself is controversial and for good reason, but it feels like he has comfortably, nestled into either being like an agreeable action hero guy or an agreeable comedy guy or some kind of blend of both, depending on whatever movie of his you're watching in the last few years. I don't really want to get into the weeds on Marky Mark also being kind of a shitty dude, or else, we would be here all evening. However, from a purely objective point of view, there are films of his that have made me laugh in recent years, or relatively recent years. I'm thinking of something like The Other Guys or something like the Ted movies get laughs out of me here and there. Um, Flight Risk is certainly a different kind of role for him compared to what he's been doing recently. And while I can admire that an actor would take a weird swing like this, he doesn't really finish the movie feeling very impactful or feeling like he has a new super memorable feather in his cap as far as his filmography goes. The start of the film, where Wahlberg's character is still trying not to blow his cover, is very entertaining. And Wahlberg does well at being kind of like a shifty liar when his cover is blown, and he becomes just kind of a boilerplate psycho killer. Qu'est-ce que c'est? The performance is less nuanced and less magnetic, in my opinion. That's just my personal take there. Now, you may have picked up on this general opinion as I've discussed the film a bit, but while I did have a fun time at the movies with Flight Risk, I think this is the perfect kind of at home viewing experience if you are being protective of your dollars. Tickets at the movies are expensive, so unless you're hurting to fill all of your A list slots, I don't think Flight Risk is totally worth it to check out inside of a movie theater. I prefer to see things in theaters if I can, but had I been forced to wait for this one for it to pop up on, I don't know what Lionsgate's current streaming deal is. Yeah, I think last I checked, it might have been Stars, but I don't even have Stars. I regardless, I would not have been really losing sleep if I were forced to wait to see Flight Risk on whatever streaming service it ends up on. So, where does Flight Risk land on my rating scale overall of A list, amazing, average, abysmal, or needs to be abolished? I think while the film is objectively pretty awful, I was in the mood to have a quick, goofy time at the theater, and not all movies need to be high art. Despite the controversial creatives involved, Flight Risk definitely does deliver like a, decently fun 90-minute little action movie. Numerically, it would probably objectively be like a 2.5 stars. I'm going to be generous and I'm going to round up my rating to an average rating. Um, you know, like I said, I can't consciously like objectively go above it a 2.5 just because yes, there are these controversial creative people involved, but also the movie itself just doesn't really rise to the occasion and become anything super great. Like I giggled at some of the Topher Grace Michelle Dockery stuff. I don't really love how many of Mark Wahlberg's jokes are just about violating the other two characters physically. That was like a weird choice, like a very kind of one note bit that he kept hitting on was him going to do certain things physically with the other two characters that I really shouldn't name if I want this to remain in people's recommendeds on YouTube. But it was just like that particular decision is a little weird. I guess like a psychotic killer might actually talk like that, but still, as an audience member, how many times can you listen to that specific joke over the course of the same 90 minutes? Um, some fun, kind of mostly voice only performances in this movie as well. It is basically a three-hander between Grace, Dockery, and Wahlberg, but there are some other characters that I won't spoil who kind of become fan favorites. I could sense my audience kind of rooting for them by the end, even though we only heard them via phone call. Um, so yeah, I don't know. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it is certainly a kind of January release, as the kind of January release schedule has a reputation for being kind of dismal. I saved $10.99 with this movie through AMC A List and saw this as part of an experiment where I see as many films as possible in a single year with A List. Like I said, I did not use my A List slot on a different movie with the same price point and sneak into Flight Risk in order to avoid giving Mel Gibson money directly or indirectly. That would be against A List's terms of service. So it is something that I did not do. I did not do the thing that I just described because that would be wrong. Um, so I didn't do it. Okay. I didn't pay for a ticket to a different film. I didn't do it. Um, so what did you think of Flight Risk? If you saw it, let me know in the comments below. And of course, I'm doing some bits here, but I will not judge you if you decided to just see the movie outright and pay actual money for it. You're allowed to watch whatever movie you want, and I'm not going to think that if you saw this movie, you support everything that Mel Gibson has ever said. I love the Mad Max movies. I own all three of them on Blu-ray, the original ones. I mean, I love the new ones too, but I don't fire up Thunderdome and, sit there and, like, pump my fist at everything Mel Gibson has ever done. I'm just enjoying the movie as it is. So, I'm being a little bit silly, but please know that I'm not going to judge you if you saw this. Alternatively, if you want to tell me what's your favorite kind of action movie with a direct to video vibe, this definitely has like a direct to video, like I said, Redbox kind of vibe. I would love to know that answer as well. So feel free to like this video or subscribe to the channel in order to get my thoughts on other theatrical releases as they come out. Stay safe, and until next time y'all need a pilot, thank you for watching.